Hey guys! Welcome to the first demonstration of the mixing course module. Back in Introduction to Music Production, we spent a little bit of time on mixing, really talking about panning, stereo width, and volume adjustments. Here we're going to go into much more depth about things such as compression and equalization. Today we're going to focus on compression, and there's a couple of different techniques that I wanted to show you that Reason makes really easy. So let's just go right ahead and get started. Before we can really dive into compression, we should probably spend some time just finding out what compression really is, what it does, and how it works. In regards to audio, compression is used to reduce the dynamic range of an audio signal. This practice is used because it can make an audio signal more consistent. For example, if you were recording vocals and the lead vocalist decided to turn her head for one or two words and the levels weren't exactly right, if you applied some audio compression, you could smooth out those things so that there's a more consistent volume throughout the entire performance. In order to better understand how compression actually works, I'm going to go ahead and solo the kick drum track of this song that I've got going. So this is the only element that we hear. And then we're going to go ahead and scroll up to the dynamic section of the mixing console so we can apply some compression and see how this actually all works. So we have an audio signal, in this case a kick drum, going through this compressor. Now we set a certain threshold. Right now it's set at negative 25 dB. What this means is that as soon as this audio signal, the kick drum, reaches negative 25 dB, the compressor is going to begin to work. The ratio that we set determines how hard the compressor is going to work once it has reached the threshold. And then finally, the release time is going to set how long it takes for the compressor to turn off once the audio signal has fallen below the threshold again. Let's go ahead and put this into practice so you can see how it works. I'm going to press play to begin the kick drum. First thing, I have to turn on the compressor to enable it. And you'll see even though I turned it on, it's not actually doing anything on the meters here. So I'm going to reduce the threshold and increase the ratio. Now you can begin to see how the compressor is actually squashing some of that audio. And what it's doing to the sound is just beefing it up a little bit. Now, a useful tool when you're making changes on a compressor is to utilize the bypass function, or in this case, simply turn on and off the compressor just to make sure that the changes you've made have actually been positive ones. So again, I'm going to press play and let the kick drum run on a loop while turning on and off the compressor just to make sure the changes I've made are positive ones. I like the sound of that better. It just has a little more presence and just a little more meat to it. Now, the nice thing about Reason 7 and other digital audio workstations is that there are more than one ways to do things. Here in the mix window, it's very easy to apply compression to each track via the mixing console. But if this isn't exactly the way you like to work, you can simply turn these compressors off and we can use insert effects. In order to do this, we need to go back to the instrument or rack window in Reason and find the instrument we want to apply the compression to. In this case, it was the kick drum. Now what's going to happen is while highlighting the instrument that you want to apply the effects to, you're also going to create a compressor. So now I've created a compressor effect that's going to apply only to this instrument. Just like in the mix window, this compressor has all the same parameters you might see: threshold, ratio, attack and release, with a few others, but also the meter to make sure how compressed the sound is getting. Likewise, the bypass functions are here on the upper left corner. So just like we did with the compressor in the mix window, we're going to use this insert compressor to try to come up with some of the same results. So again, I'm going to press play, run the kick drum on a loop, and then begin to change some of these parameters. Again, sounds much more present and much beefier with the compressor. So, how else is compression used in music production? One very common technique of recent years is known as parallel compression. In performing parallel compression, an audio engineer duplicates or creates a parallel channel of an audio signal and applies heavy compression to that. This way, you have an original recording of the performance with dynamic range, and then you have a highly compressed version with very little dynamic range. Then you slowly combine the two until you reach the desired sound. This allows for that presence and more beefy sound with the compressed signal while also maintaining the original integrity of the performance. So how exactly can we achieve this? I'm going to go back up to the mix window and show you how it's done. For example, in this song, there's a solo section where a synth plays the solo, and in my mind, the sound for the synth just falls a little bit flat. Let's take a listen. Okay. Not too bad, but it falls a little flat and could use a little more edge. So I'm going to do one of two things. I could either highlight the particular instrument that I want to perform the parallel compression on, right click, and duplicate the channel and track, which would give me a copy. I could then apply a bunch of compression and then mix the two sounds together. That's a very common way to accomplish this. However, in Reason 7, a new update allows you to create as many parallel channels as you like without actually having to duplicate any audio. So I'm going to press Command Z to undo what I just did and show you how you can create a parallel channel similarly by highlighting the instrument, right-clicking, and creating a parallel channel. Now I can turn on the compressor on the parallel channel, apply some heavy compression, and then I'm just going to solo the two instruments that we wanted to apply the parallel compression to, and then turn down the parallel channel where I applied all the compression. Now I'm just going to play this back and slowly add in the parallel channel with all the compression until we reach the desired sound. Starting to sound a lot better in my mind. But just to make sure, I'm going to go ahead and play this again, and I'm going to turn on and off the parallel channel with the compression, just to make sure the changes we made were good ones. That solo is starting to sound a lot better. Now, Reason 7 allows you to create as many parallel channels as you like, but don't forget it can be easy to get lost down this rabbit hole. Molding sounds can be fun, but you can also get lost and take up way too much time. Sometimes it's necessary to remember you have a goal of finishing a mix, finishing a song in a project. Don't get hung up on creating sounds. There's one other form of compression that I wanted to mention today, and that's called sidechain compression. What sidechain compression does is take one audio signal that acts as a trigger to enable a compressor on a different audio signal. One very common application for that these days in EDM music is to use a kick drum as a trigger to apply compressors to other instruments such as bass lines or pads, and this is used to achieve that pumping sort of club sound that so many songs have. So, how can we achieve these effects within reason? Well, first I have to identify an instrument or a sound that I want to apply the sidechain effect to. In this case, I think it would be nice to use the pad sound. Let's go ahead and listen to a section of the song where I think it would be useful. I think that would sound much more interesting if it had that pumping feel to it. So how exactly do we make this sidechain compression work? What I have to do is go up to the Insert Effects section for this particular instrument, found here, and simply insert the sidechain compression preset. In this case, placing the preset in there allows me to adjust these parameters very easily and very quickly. So now that I've inserted the sidechain effect, let's go ahead and press play and see what that's done to our sound. So you can already hear that pumping sound beginning. So now let's hear what that sounds like with the rest of the instruments. Much more interesting for our mix. Thanks for joining me for this first demonstration in the mixing course module. Hopefully you have a better understanding of compression and what it does to dynamic range, and also how it can be used in other ways, such as sidechain compression, just to get different unique sounds in your music productions. We'll see you next time when we focus on equalization. See you then.